Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with a layered Norcal Nicoise salad. That's right, I've always wanted to show you my take on this amazing composed salad, but I was concerned it wasn't trendy enough, which is why we're going to do a little bit of a spin on this, utilizing three very hot trends, which would be chopped salads, layered salads, and, last but not least, serving things in mason jars, to which some people might add for no apparent reason, but I'm sure there's reasons. And hopefully we'll come up with a few before the end of the video. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started by cubing some potatoes. And to start that, we'll take a little slice off the bottom, so it's nice and stable on that cutting board. And then what we want to do is cut some nice thick slices as even as we can. Okay, as usual, it doesn't matter exactly how thick, as long as they're fairly consistent. And by the way, while we're doing potatoes this time, this technique is exactly the same no matter what you're cubing. Okay, zucchini, carrot, eggplant, all the same technique. And then what we'll do once our slices are cut is cut these lengthwise into sticks by using the exact same width as we did thickness. And if, just to pick a number, our slices were a ½ inch thick and our sticks were a ½ inch wide, by cutting across this way every ½ inch, we should have fairly nice cubes. So as I've said for years, good knife skills are almost more geometry than they are hand-eye coordination. And of course, once our potatoes are cut up, we'll want to keep those in cold water until they're ready to cook, which is going to be pretty soon. But a little tip, before we get the water all starchy, we might as well blanch our green beans first. So let's go ahead and bring some water up to a boil, which has been very thoroughly salted. Yes, that was a lot of salt. But when we're cooking potatoes or blanching vegetables, that's very important. And believe it or not, to check we have enough, you're actually going to taste it. I know, it seems silly, but take a spoon and give it a taste. And even though flavorless, it should still taste well seasoned. Okay, as we say in the business, it should taste like the world's worst soup. Right, another thing you hear is people say it should taste like seawater. So we'll definitely want to give that a test. And once that comes to a boil, we'll go ahead and toss in our green beans. And we are only going to boil these for exactly 2 minutes. Okay, all we're doing is locking in that beautiful green color, as well as just taking off the raw edge. All right, we definitely want these still fairly firm. So I boiled those beans for 2 minutes. And as usual, fish them out into a bowl of ice water to stop the cooking. And then what we'll do once those are cold is drain them and slice them into the appropriate size. So our beans are set, and we will go ahead and transfer our potatoes back into that boiling, perfectly salted water. Except unlike the beans, we want to cook these until they're tender. Not soft, not falling apart, but just barely tender. And what I like to do once they've reached that stage is fish them out with this strainer onto a paper towel lined plate. And after letting those drain for a couple minutes, what I'll do is pull the paper out, and while still warm, drizzle these with a little bit of olive oil. And then I'll go ahead and give those a toss, and simply let them cool down just like that. And I'd like to give you a very specific, scientific reason for why I do this, but it's more so something that just looks and feels right. And you could probably skip this step, and it would still be fine. But either way, we're going to let our potatoes cool down. And speaking of cool down, as I mentioned, once our green beans are cool, we can go ahead and drain those. And since we're doing a chopped salad, I'm going to cut those up into like ½ inch pieces, maybe 3/4. But anyway, our beans are set, our potatoes are cooling, and we can move on to the other ingredients in the salad, such as some oil-packed tuna. Oh yeah, do not use water-packed tuna for this salad. And I have two kinds here, and they're both kind of expensive. The one on your right here is just regular tuna packed in olive oil. And I also have on the left here a more expensive tuna belly packed in olive oil, which I believe goes by the name Ventresca. And if you happen to be wondering, is it really worth the extra few dollars to get the good imported olive oil packed tuna? Yes. I've never been so sure of anything in my life. And then besides what you've already seen, we're definitely going to need some tomatoes. And I'm going to go with some halved cherry tomatoes. And then we're also going to want to include some olives. And if you can find them, you're going to use Nicoise. But any pitted olive will work. And then last but not least, we need some hard-boiled egg, which I've chopped to fit the theme of my salad. So our Nicoise mise en place is done. And we would normally start arranging this beautifully on a plate, but not this time. No way, we're going to do a layered salad in this mason jar. And for my first layer, I'm going to go with the potatoes. That's right, we're going to make our guests work for those carbs. So we'll do a layer of potatoes and arrange them with my Nicoise tweezers, or tweezers as I believe they're called in France. And then once our potato layer is set, I'm going to go with the green beans next, which I'll arrange with a fork instead of the tweezers, which worked about the same. I just didn't feel as silly. And then after the beans, I'm going with the tuna. And since that's going to get broken up as we toss this with the dressing or eat it in this jar, we don't want to crumble it too small as we put it in here. So as you can see, I'm going with some fairly nice big chunks. And I should probably warn you, once you try tuna packed in olive oil, it's virtually impossible to go back to the other stuff. So something to be careful of, or look forward to. But anyway, next up we'll go with our tomatoes. And then I really should have finished off with the olives and the egg. But I seem to have a lot of beans around, so I did an extra small layer of that. And then continued on with the olives and the eggs. And my basic strategy with these layered salads is to make sure the first few layers are nice. And once people can see what's going on, we can kind of phone in the last few layers. Oh, and by the way, make sure you leave a few inches at the top. Otherwise, we won't be able to eat this, or toss it with dressing. So I went ahead and finished that off with my hard-boiled egg as my last official layer, before deciding to garnish with a whole anchovy fillet. Okay, fine, I just wanted to use my Nicoise one more time. And then just because I had it, I finished this off with a little bit of freshly chopped Italian parsley. And that's it, our chopped, layered, mason jar encased Nicoise is done. And actually looking pretty good. As a food blogger might say, it looks fun and festive. But anyway, I'm going to screw on the lid and pop that in the fridge, because I still need to show you what makes this a Norcal Nicoise. And that's going to be this gorgeous avocado vinaigrette, which is going to start with some anchovies and some Dijon mustard, to which we're going to add some lemon juice and some champagne vinegar, or just some regular white wine vinegar. And then because this is a French vinaigrette, we must do a little bit of minced shallot. Plus, I'm also going to do a nice pinch of fresh tarragon. Which brings us to the star of the dressing, about a quarter cup of fresh, ripe avocado. And of course, since we now have avocado in the dressing, we can now legally call our Nicoise a Norcal Nicoise. And we'll go ahead and season that up with some freshly ground black pepper and cayenne. And we don't need salt because of the anchovy. And other than the perfect amount of olive oil, that is going to be it for our dressing, which we will now emulsify with our stick blender. And once I had that blended together, I went ahead and gave it a taste, which blew me away with how delicious it was. I just thought it was a little thick. So I stirred in a little bit of water, which contrary to popular belief is totally fine to do in a salad dressing. Oh, and by the way, when you tasted that, if you thought it needed a little more acidity, we could have also thinned it with a little more lemon juice. And once that was mixed up and I gave it a final taste, I deemed it perfect. And that's it. We are now ready to turn our Nicoise salad into a Norcal Nicoise salad. And as far as service goes, there's a few ways we can go here. We could just show the jar to everyone, and after the use and ahs, we could dump it into a bowl and mix it with the dressing like normal people. Or, of course, we could pour some dressing in and eat it right out of the jar. And by the way, this shot was just a few knuckles away from being perfect. But anyway, if we want, we can mix that dressing right in the jar and just eat it like this, which I would describe as the most hip way to do it. And as much as I kid around about it, truth be told, it is fun eating out of a jar, which is probably just some leftover part of our reptilian brain that enjoys digging and hunting for food. So eating it right out of this is one way you can go, which can be a really fun way to go for camping and cookouts and picnics. But let's say for whatever reason you can't bring yourself to eat out of a jar. What we can do is pour the dressing in, put the lid on, and once we've given that the old shake-a, we can just dump that on a plate or platter and enjoy it like that. So whatever you're into, you are after all the Alexander the Great of how to plate your edible clickbait. But regardless of how you decide to serve it, the Nicoise is one of the world's great salads. But above and beyond that, I really think you're going to enjoy it even more with this creamy avocado vinaigrette. So I really do hope you give this a try soon. Head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.